and not sharing because I know when you have a slide in front of you, you tend to look at that. So we're not going to, that's not the way this course is. This is not even a course. It's a discussion. I'm going to tell you the things that I learned on my journey. And then we're going to talk about those things. If you want to, please feel free to just say what you need to say. As long as we keep it under an hour, I'm good. Okay?
Okay.
Like that. All right. So rules, they're more like guidelines. I just like this picture and the quote from the movie. It's important to note one thing before we dive into these. They do not mean instant peerage. If I could change it, I would call it becoming a chivalrous person, but I can't go back in time and change it, so here we are. This is not, a peerage is a small way at looking at what we're going to discuss today. This is about becoming a better person and what I had to do to change completely who I was. It's important to know when I say that I still have trigger moments where I go back to who I used to be, but I've worked very hard to recognize them, apologize when those things happen, walk away when those moments happen, and most importantly, just shut up. The rules came about, and I was going to look this up and I didn't because I had so many other things happen today at work. So I wrote them because a friend of mine was becoming a squire to someone I really admired. And this person is quite a handful. This person who is becoming a squire is high maintenance, as in they open their mouths and explosions occur, swearing, overt sexual stuff. Like they're just a very rough person. And I thought, oh my God, you're a saint for taking this person on as your squire. And I should say right now that they're knighted. This person has since been knighted. They did get themselves together. They found the perfect peer for them. But if that person had been my dependent, what would I try to beat into their head literally? And this is where the rules came from. The most important thing I think to understand is the rules come from, there's really only one rule. And I found that I had to break down that into smaller bite-sized chunks. I wrote them in 2013, I believe. It could have been 2014. That's what I forgot to look up. And so I was like, this is what I need to teach this person. I can't, so how do I break it down into chunks? And so every day it took about 2 weeks because we had a death in the Midrealm. There were events. I tried to and then I took my time writing these. I tend to write very off the cuff, and these are very me. If you've read them, you'll understand you're looking into my soul. This is how I talk, is how I write. But I wanted to make sure that they were succinct and not as rambly as I tend to be. Rule number 1. All right, any questions? Are we good? Okay. Rule number 1, be discreet. I mess this rule up all the time. There was a woman that I was talking to about becoming their apprentice. And she said, so I talked to some people about you and they said, you really love to gossip. You say so much stuff about people. You really need to be discreet. And she told me the secret, which I then incorporated, which is pick 2 people. Those 2 people are the people you talk to, the people you kvetch with. Oh my gosh, did you see the thing that happened? This thing happened. I'm really frustrated. I'm really mad, whatever. I want to snark about something. You only snark with those 2 people. Away from SCA events. I was at an SCA event in a safe space, snarking with people, not realizing that the walls were very thin and the person we were snarking about was on the other side of that wall. So the rule the other guideline to this, the subtext is bitch away from the SCA. If you really got to vent about something, someone, whatever, do not do it at an event. Do not do it in any way, shape, or form at an event, at a meeting, at nothing. But really, why do you need to do it? Let's break it down. Sure, we're all human beings who want to kvetch about stuff, bitch about stuff, however you want to put it. But why? What are you inviting into your life by letting that happen? And this is one of the only 2 amendments I've made to my rules is this amendment right here. Be discreet, sure. but really think about why you feel like you need to say those things at all. Because sometimes you just need to say, that made me unhappy. Why did it make me unhappy? And then move on. Questions? Rule 2. It's not about you. I am a diva. I am a Leo. I am a Gryffindor. It is always about me, but it's really not. I joke around about it, but I am fully aware of the fact that the vast majority of people, not only in the world, but even in the SCA, don't know who I am and don't care. The vast majority of the people in the world would like, oh, Zsof, yeah, sure, she seems like a nice person, and then they'd keep diddy-bopping about their way. Most people don't know you, and most people don't care. They care insofar as you're a human being, and we should all care for each other, but you are not as important as you like to think you are. Addendum is that I'm a Christian, so I have to tell you that we're all important, we're all loved. There you go. I mean, that's just how I am and what I believe. And I believed that before I was even a Christian. But all of us are important. All of us matter. But you don't need to assume that it's always about you, because chances are it's not. What did I do for the next little bullet here? It's so exciting. Okay, so how do we help make it not about us? If you win something, the one thing happened, I won this huge Bardic competition, and I swear to God, I said this in the rules, it was like I won Wheel of Fortune. I was like running down the aisle like, whoa, look at me, I won, I'm the Bardic champion. And it was so off the hook. Like, I was legit excited about winning, but it was really unnecessary. So be polite, say thank you. If you're winning a competition, anything that's happening, just be polite about it. Part number 2, if you're in a competition again with somebody and somebody says, you were really great, say, so were you. I loved your song. I loved your piece. I loved your shit. You got that rap shot in on Brannos of all people. Are you kidding me? Like, whatever it is, find something about the person, if they were in that thing with you, and compliment them on it. This means you have to be aware, which helps you get out of the it's all about me mindset. If you are watching other people and seeing what other people are doing, it's then easier to tell them how awesome they are. Helps you break out of that me mindset. When you praise, turn it around and praise others. So Tommaso and I were at an event together, Bardic Madness. And somebody was like, Zsof, your story was so great. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. Did you hear what Tommaso performed? Did you hear that song that he wrote? Oh, wasn't that incredible? And I'm being honest. I'm thanking them for praising me and then turning it into praising someone else as well, which gets you out of that whole awkward silence that happens after somebody says you're awesome and they didn't perform or they didn't fight. And you're like, I don't know what to say. What do they do? Oh, look, let me praise someone else. And again, be aware of what's happening around you so you can drop praise all the time. If you do something awesome, you need to find an advocate. This is not as hard to do as you think. And if you don't have an advocate, just come to me and I'll be your advocate. Their job is to tell other people how awesome you are. That's literally their job. I have got 5 dependents right now. And my job is to tell everybody in the world how awesome and incredible those 5 people are. That's my job. I support them, I encourage them, sure. But to the public, you want to know, I'm like worse than a cat mom when it comes to my 5 dependents. I can tell you everything about how awesome they are. And I tell them often too. That's the job of somebody like me, of a peer. So find somebody to help spread the word of you're awesome. Get tokens, give them out. People love getting tokens, even if it's cookies, even if it's something, because I have a huge basket full of tokens. And I remember some of who gave them to me. I have a really bad memory though. And I've been in the SCA since 1993. So give people cookies, give people little beads, give people things, and just so that the very first token I got I could not tell you a lot of the tokens I got, but I know exactly the token I got from Mistress Elion from North Shield. She gave it to me for being brave enough to perform at a Penzic. And I treasure that because it was the very first token I ever got. So remember, to some people, that will be the first token they ever get. And everybody can give tokens, by the way, not just peers. Everybody can give tokens, and it's awesome. So do that. It's still not about you, even when you think it is. Rule number 3, don't assume. Don't listen to gossip. There are exceptions to this, and we will talk about those. But this all goes back again to rule number 2, which is be aware of what's going on around you. I am a watcher. So I'll sit in a corner talking to people, and if you've sat with me in a corner talking, you'll notice that I'm constantly looking around. I'm listening to you, but I'm also observing what's happening around me, which is why I used to be able to tell my son, my ex-husband, my daughter, where their keys were, because I was always watching what was happening around me. And I can see and would see the people that everybody was like, this person is so awesome. And then I would be like, yeah, did you see what they did to the person while nobody was looking, but I happened to be looking? What they do in public is very different from what they do in private. So be aware and watch people, and it will really help you. Does everybody know about the missing stare? The SCA is pretty awesome at this, and they shouldn't be. Women have this thing, and if you know a woman, ask her about it, she'll tell you all about it. We go to an event and people will be like, oh yeah, so that's Bob, just stay away from Bob, he's a bit of a mess, just stay away from Bob. And so we warn other women about the problem people, and that should not be how this works. We should not be warning people about people. We should be kicking those people out. So if enough people come up to you, women, and say, Bob is a jerk, then just stay away from Bob until we can actually do something about Bob and get him out of the SCA. Okay? Questions? All right. People get awards. People get awards that you want, but you don't know why they got them. There's that joke about how some queens become queens, that I'm not going to even say what that gossip is because I won't dirty my mouth by letting those words come across it. That stuff's nasty and that stuff's wrong, and that's people assuming out of jealousy and smallness. People earn their awards. I know very few people who have never earned the awards that they've been given in the SCA. So do not assume that you know why. You do not know everything that people do in the organization. So do not assume at all, okay? Don't assume about how they look. Just don't. In the rules on the blog, I have a picture of me at my very first Penzic where I was like wearing cavalier garb with a leather bodice and a hat and a whip, and a leather tankard. Like I was like a hot mess. But I wasn't until I went to a coronation dressed like a hot mess that somebody said something to me, and that's a whole nother thing. But you can't judge somebody by how they look and what they're wearing. Be welcoming to all. That's what we're supposed to be about. And just because they're wearing something that looks more like it came from a Tolkien novel than that it came from an actual authentic thing, hey man, they tried. Be awesome to them. Welcome them. And maybe they'll learn because you're wearing awesome garb. Don't this woman said to me, oh, I'm so glad you got new garb because you look like a ratty nerf herder in that other thing that you were wearing. And I was like, oh my God, that hurt so bad. Don't do that. Don't be that person. Always assume ignorance, not malice. This is important. So, so, so important. It's always easy to assume, and this again goes back to that rule that it's not about you, right? So don't assume that people are just going out of their way to hurt you and be mean to you, because they're probably honestly not even really thinking about you. And they're probably just are not aware of what's going on. So to save yourself and them, just assume that they're not aware and not that they're trying to hurt you. It makes it a lot easier. Okay, questions before we go on? Rule number 4, don't swear. Really don't swear. I swear. I swear a lot. Trying to get back off the swearing wagon again. It's getting easier, but just don't swear. So how do you not swear? Find different words. Poop, gosh dang it, cheese and rice. Those are some of the things that I say so that you have a word ready to substitute for the other word, right? Just be ready. So if I say, God, la 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 la, oh, cheese and rice, bop, 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 bop. Swear jar, love swear jars. Most of us don't actually have money on us anymore. So like create a virtual swear jar where every time I swear, I'll put $5 in savings or something, whatever it is for you. It helps if you reward yourself for not swearing. So maybe that would be the opposite. So the day you don't swear, put $5 in savings. How's that instead? That way you're rewarding your good behavior. And they're just like pronouns. Apologize, correct yourself, move on, try better the next time. I swore, I said I'm sorry, cheese and rice, keep going. They don't need a monologue about why you swore and why you're not swearing anymore. So yeah, just think before you open your mouth, which is something we'll go into in a little bit. Questions? Rule number 5. It is okay to say no. It's always better to say no than to say yes and totally hose something up. So somebody comes to you with a task and says, hey, Zsof, I really, really, really want you to do this thing. I always now say to them, and this happens in the real world too. That's why I'm saying these rules sort of carry over into the modern world. These are not just SCA rules. And I say, oh, let me think about that. Let me look at my schedule. Let me talk to my supervisor. Let me see where I'm at, if I can do this right now. Same in the SCA. I've asked you to become regional, whatever. Yeah, let me get back to you on it. Let me think about it. I'll let you know. And then you hook up, you call your peer, you call a friend, you talk to your spouse or significant other, and really go in depth and discuss. Is this something you want to do? Do you have the resources and the time and the energy to do it? And the point of asking usually your significant other is they're going to say, yeah, but honey, you always do that big thing in February. Are you going to be able to do this and that when you have that big thing that comes up too? So get somebody who can be your other brain and work through the timeline of the project, the timeline of the task, and make sure that you can actually dedicate your time to this project. Then you really need to think about it. If you're going to say no, offer alternatives. This is an important thing to think about. If I'm going to say no to a project, it's always better to find someone else who can do that for me, which I have done regularly. I was asked if I would be willing to become regional MOAS. This was many years ago. And I thought about it and I was like, Benjamin was still little. I think he was like 5, which tells you it was like 10 years ago. I was like, I just don't think I can do it. So I talked to somebody else that I thought it would be a great opportunity for them. And they were like, yeah, I think I'd be interested in that. So I contacted the Kingdom MOAS and said, it's not for me, but I think you should talk to this person. That person was offered the job, became the regional MOAS, and did a great job. So always offer alternatives. One of the things that cheeses me off in the modern world is when we come across problems too. If I have a problem, this is totally a side note. If I have a problem and somebody says, well, that's not working right for me, it's my job to say, okay, so what are you doing? How can I help you further? Not to say, well, I don't know, you're SOL, bye, right? It's always your job to take it to completion. Everything you should take to completion. So that's what I do for other people if they're offering me a project. We have a chat. All right, Antonio asks a question about assuming. Okay, we're going back to that. So one of the other big reasons we don't assume about awards is because when presumptions arise that people have awards which they have yet to earn, it makes them harder for them to be recognized in the future. As a newish person to the society, I've heard a number of stories where people were presumed to be armigers when they weren't, and that leading them to not receiving an AOA for 10 plus or even 20 plus years in some cases. Absolutely. If you think somebody has an award, go look it up in the OP, the order of precedence in your kingdom. Chances are they probably don't. There is a there are a number of people I know. I keep thinking about Mistress Ginny in the Midrealm Columbus area, and Ike and Runa gave her a dragon's heart, and they were like, "We had no idea you didn't have a dragon's heart." And then a few months later, she got a pelican because she was so past due for that, and nobody realized. Everybody just figured she had it. Well, she didn't, and their Majesties caught up to that and gave her the award that she really deserved. So you're absolutely right, Antonio. Thank you. All right, back to the PowerPoint. It's okay to say no. Offer alternatives, right? We did that. If you do say yes and the project is so too much, tell somebody. There is nothing more frustrating, and I'm literally telling you this as a Laurel right now from my lips to your ears. If you take on a project and start to hose it up and then completely drop the ball and walk away, I will find you and hurt you. Like you will have totally destroyed your reputation for at least a year as being a reliable person for at least a year. Legit, honestly, and that's in the real world too. If you mess up a project at work, when are they going to offer you another project again? It's the same thing in the SCA. You mess it up, we're not going to offer it to you. So if you find you're over your head with something, you really can't do it, tell somebody. You will find at least 5 people that will jump up and say, let me help you with this project then. Come to me, brainstorm with me. I mean, everybody, if you don't know how to get in touch with me, then go to the Midrealm page and look under the Order of the Laurel and you'll find me and send me an email and I'll walk it through with you. Always, if it's too much for you, do not bury your head in the sand about it because that will make everything worse. And that's not what you want to do. And I'm telling you that because I dropped balls. I personally dropped a lot of balls when I was on the path to peerage. So don't do it. This is a big one. I had a girlfriend who they needed an officer position filled in the kingdom, in the barony she lives in. And they were like, we want you to take over this job. We know you did it before, but you were really great. We don't have any viable candidates for the position. Could you just take it over again? And she was like, Zsof, I really don't want to do this job. And I said, well, then don't do it. This is not, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're our only freaking hope right now. Like there are other people that can learn to do the job. If you do not want to do the job, do not do the job. It's just that simple. And I'm telling you that because I've taken jobs that I didn't really want to do, screwed them up horribly, felt like a dork. And then other people had to come in and try to clean up the mess I left. If you don't want to do it, do not do it. Swear to you, you will regret it so hardcore. Questions? All right, we're going to keep moving on. Rule number 6. Having a bad day, walk away. And this fun. I had so much fun with my little animations, guys. I feel like I'm back in the 90s. So don't be a drama llama, okay? It's that simple. Let me plop them all down here. If life is too much, stay home. If you start losing at an event, walk away for a bit. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. We've all seen the person at the event, and it's not always about you, but I remember I went to an event, and as I was getting close to the event, my car started making a very scary noise, and I had my eldest child with me, who was probably 5 or 6 years old at the time. So it was a Saturday morning, I was in the Dayton area, and my car was completely scaring me. and I was supposed to teach a class. And so I got there and I was so terrified. I had the little one with me, single SCA mom. My husband at the time had nothing to do with the SCA. And I pushed through, and I shouldn't have, because I had a huge meltdown, really wanted to bury my head in the sand for a while. It was very embarrassing. And I should have just dealt with the car problem. The teaching a class is not as important as making sure that my car is okay. So my priorities were completely messed up in this case. As soon as I felt the first hint of tears coming to my eyes, I should have said, "Oh, sorry, I need to go pull myself together. I'll be back." You should not try to push through, because I can tell you when you try to push through, that's when the emotions are going to burst out at the worst possible moment. So just walk away. Don't go to the event. There have been times that I've been slated to go to an SCA event, and I have posted the night before, that morning, "Sorry guys, I'm not going to be there," following my own rules. If I'm on emotional thin ice, there's no point in my going. However, if I need to go because I need hugs and it's close enough, I can go pay toll, pay gate, and then go see people I need to see and get hugs and then go home, right? So I'm not saying, especially right now, God, I would love to get a hug from the vast majority of you that I'm looking at right now. But I can't. So there's times that we just want to see a friend or do a hug, and maybe your friend's willing to leave the event to come meet you for coffee or something. But if you're on emotional thin ice, it's just going to end in disaster and far more tears, and you're not going to look too great. I'm sorry to say it, but there are people who will judge you because of that. So you don't want that to happen. And always remember, if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. Rule number 7, where are we at? 7:30. Think before you speak. Subtitles, shut up. Okay. So in the rule on the blog, I talk about this. I used to work in radio, and when I worked in radio, and when I had my podcast too, I would interview people all the time. And I really loved talking to people. And I would go into the interview and I would have my little notepad and I would be like, "Okay, here's my questions. I'm going to ask you my questions." And they would talk, and then I would be like, "Well, this question has nothing to do with whatever they just said, but this is my next question, so I better ask my question." And then I learned that that was really ridiculous. So then I would sit there and be like, "I want to ask them this question. I want to ask them this question. I want to ask them this question." And so I'd be holding it in my brain, and then I wouldn't hear what they were saying because I was too busy holding the thought in my brain, which is where active or effective listening comes into play. I found that I would always have a pen and a pad next to me. And as they talked, I'd be looking in their eyes and I would write down a note. Just follow up, blah, blah. Whatever the 1 or 2 words, real easy to help me remember. And it's gone from my brain, and I can listen to what they're saying, and they may say something else. I'll follow up that. Okay. So that was how I learned to be an effective and active listener to people. And it's a really great trick to learn for the whole of your life, to learn how to be an active and effective listener. There is, and I will post these, I will ask these links to be posted for you. There's a Forbes article out there on this that helps you, steps on how to become an active listener. The first thing you need to do before you become an active listener is understanding how you communicate. So I found a nifty little quiz for you. And once you've learned how you communicate, it's one of the things that I do with my teams at work. I know how I communicate. How do you communicate? Because I need to learn how my subordinates communicate so that I can be a better manager of them, a better supervisor. If I have somebody who doesn't want to talk about feelings and only wants me to say, "This is what you need to do. This is how we need to do it. What do you think? Are we good? Cool. Boom, go." There are other people who want to get all into their feelings and stuff. So learn how you communicate, and then you can you can learn how to effectively listen to other people so that you can communicate with them. And then practice. Once you read these things, do this article from Forbes, take the quiz, and then just grab your partner, grab a friend, and just start doing effective, active listening. And I think it's easier now because of Zoom, so they're not going to see, all they're going to see is you going, oh, right? So, and then you can take notes of what they're saying, and you can work on your active, effective listening, and then bring it into the not Zoom, not virtual world. So stop and listen. That's the biggest thing to remember. And the thing is, in the blog post about these rules, I talk about this, that there was a friend I had who's a lot like me. And somebody was like, yeah, he always wants to give his opinion. This knight said this. But sometime maybe he just needs to shut up, and when we ask him what he thinks, maybe, just stop talking. And I was like, what is this, like a test? You ask him what he thinks and then you're mad because he tells you. But it is, what he was saying was that if somebody asks you what you think, sometimes you should say, I'm not sure right now. What do you think? Or I'm not sure right now. I'd like some time to think about it. You don't always have to have an answer. You will not always have an answer. And that's okay. So this is an interesting one. Your path is not my path. And this was taught to me by Sir Artair. And it was really a hard one for me to learn. And I managed to get over myself enough to learn it. This takes back to assume. Do not judge others, though. It's really easy to judge others to either feel better about ourselves or to feel worse about ourselves. I will never be as good or incredible of a costumer as Constanza, Mistress Constanza from the Cleflins. She's incredible. She makes incredible, beautiful outfits. I will never be as good as her. I hate sewing, so I really will never be as good as her. And I've accepted that. But when I see her looking so beautiful in her garb, and it seems to come so effortlessly to her, I feel like a pretty crappy person because I'm not as good as her. It's really easy to do that, isn't it? To make yourself feel worse because you're not as good as somebody else. Constanza has been sewing for 30 or so years of her life. Of course she makes incredible garb. This is what she's dedicated her not work time to doing, is making incredible garb. Ties back to that other rule. You don't know what other people have done or not done. So their path, it may look really easy to you, and it might not be. It's not about you, stop making it about you. All right, so the final rule, but we're not going to go right there yet. So those were the 8 rules. I know you saw it because I forgot where I stopped the slide, sorry. So those 8 rules were my summation of the 9th rule, the final rule. So we've got 25 minutes left, so let me just lay it out really quick. I was a really horrible hot mess person. I knew my art, I knew my craft, I was a master of theater. Never in doubt by anybody, never in doubt. I mean, if you wanted to know, I was talking to people at universities about what I knew, and they were like, you know way more about mystery, miracle, and morality plays than I could ever know. Like, I had dedicated my life to learning, studying, incorporating everything I could about this one part, just one little part of medieval theater. But I was a schmuck beyond belief. I was insecure. I was an ugly person. I automatically assumed, because I was bullied, like how many of us were, I was bullied in high school. And, I was just a mess full of self-hatred and insecurities. And while I was great at what I did, I was definitely not a peer. Absolutely not a peer. And Master Millicent, excuse me, that's what she goes by, and I are both in the Cleflins, and we both were on about the same timeline in the SCA. And my then Laurel at the time, it was at Crown Tourney, Radagaisus and Canewin's Crown Tourney that Saturday night, because it was the spring one. They had the A&S court. And my then Laurel got up, stood before the king and queen, and said, I want to tell you about a person, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, OMG, I'm about to get put on vigil for the Laurel. OMG, OMG. And then this other person stood up and started talking too. And I was like, oh, that's Millicent's Laurel. OMG, how cool if they're going to put us both on vigil at the same time. And then they said, Your Majesties, we beg a boon. We ask you to put Millicent on vigil for the Laurel. And I was like, not me. Why not me? Why am I not getting this? Why is she getting this? What did I do? And I somehow managed to congratulate her. And then four very dear friends dragged me back to the hotel room, got me drunk, and let me cry, sobbing, crying that what was I doing wrong? What am I, a horrible person? I'm never going to get my Laurel. I hate this. I hate the SCA. I'm just going to leave. And I vowed right then and there I was giving my belt back, which I did, and I wanted nothing more to do. And I literally told my Laurel, F the Laurels. They ask about me. They want to know anything about me. You tell them I gave them double fingers up. Bite me, never. I want nothing more to do with this path of peerage. And then I got over myself. And then I realized that the truth was that I am a master of my art. But man, I was a really crappy human being. I was a really crappy human being. And so because I am who I am, and I feel like I'll always be growing and pushing and learning until the day I die, I thought, well, who are the people that I really admire in the SCA? Who are they? And immediately I thought of Rangvalder, Duke Rangvalder, who I swear, and look, he's a human being and he's got issues. I couldn't tell you what they are, but I know he does. What an incredible human being, patient and gentle and kind and giving. And Kellic and Duke Edward Grey from the East Kingdom. And I started thinking of more and more, and they were all knights, and I'm not saying that there's not other peers out there. I think about Gianetta, the Laurel Pelican, she's incredible from Chicago. But I was really just thinking about all these knights, and I thought, well, what? I know for a fact that some of these knights were not like this when they came out of their mother's bodies. How did they get to become like this? What did they do to be this? So I started asking them, like, what did you do? And like Edward was like, it was all my wife, dude. It was my wife. She molded me and helped me. But now, you know that's not true. He's so humble, he couldn't see it. Look at Ish. Look at Ish and what a great man he is, and how humble he is, and how much of a knight he is. How do I get to be like that? That's what I wanted to know. And it was still, I didn't care about getting a Laurel, because that striving push to become a Laurel broke me. And that we can have a long rant later. We can talk offline about my thoughts on peerages. But my striving for a peerage broke me, and unfortunately it has broken far too many people. So I stopped caring about getting a Laurel. I just stopped caring. I didn't want a Laurel anymore. I wanted to fix me. So how did I fix me? I talked to all of those people. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them. What did you do? And this is what they all told me. I swear fealty and do homage to the crown of the Middle Kingdom. That part, that's important, but here's what's really important. To ever be a good knight and true, reverent and generous, shield of the weak, obedient to my liege lord, foremost in battle, courteous at all times, champion of the right and the good. Can I be that? Probably not, but I'm going to really try. And every day I really try. And I screw up, sometimes publicly, very publicly, sometimes privately, sometimes nobody knows but me that I screwed up. But this is what I try to be. every single damn day of my life, and I will until the day I die. Can you do that? Can you try? Because the thing is that I became all of a sudden a much better human being. And that all went down in May. A year, and I was offered the accolade of Laurel a year and 2 months later, 14 months later. And I didn't care. I said, yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, because how much good can I do if I'm a Laurel? It took me a year before I even started looking for bling, because I didn't want to make it all about me, because it wasn't about me, right? I To say I didn't care and to say I don't care is not true, and does a disservice to the peerage that I have. But in the scheme of the whole world, being a peer matters very little to me. In the scheme of the whole world, people know that my word is my bond. In the scheme of the whole world at work, I am respected. In the scheme of the whole world, people come to me when they have problems and know that I may not be able to help them come up with a solution, but I will let them cry on my shoulder about it, and I will listen, and I care. Because that's what I think a knight should do. And it's outside of the SCA. And again, we go back to slide 1, or slide 3, where this is about how to be a chivalrous person, how to be a good person. And the only way to be a good person is to take this oath and print it out and put it above your desk and look at it every day and try. Because a true knight isn't going to assume about people, right? So how did I break this down? I broke this down to those 8 rules. And these are not, like, the rules don't correspond with the Knights of the Midrealm Oath, the chivalry oath of fealty, but I think they all tie into it, every single one of them. So that's where Zsof's rules came from. I will say the addendum that I need to make is when we talk about Shield of the Weak, it's very important to understand this is the biggest, besides swearing, this is the biggest mistake I make and when I get into the most trouble. Shield of the Weak does not mean that the people that you may consider weak do not have free will. There are far too many times that I jump in to defend others when they don't need me to defend them. So be careful when you're being a shield of the weak, to make sure that they really want you to get involved, because chances are, unless they're an animal or a child, they're grown-ups and they can fix their own problems. And what they really want is just a shoulder to cry on, an ear to pour their problems into, someone to just listen. One of the things I've learned with people when they come to me and they start talking about their problems, I say, wait. Do you want advice or do you want to vent? Because I need to know what hat I'm putting on. And 9 times out of the time, they say, right now, I just want to vent. And I go, okay, vent. You will get not a word of advice from me. If you do not actively ask me for advice about your problem, I'm not going to give it to you. So just be careful with the whole shield of the weak thing. Guys, don't overstep your bounds. Understand that people are their own selves and they have the right to choose. Before you jump in and defend another human being that's over the age of 18 and is actually a human being, make sure that help is wanted, desired, required. Literally, that's how I get in the most trouble, is when I break that rule. Okay. Last slide is, this is my conclusion that I have. And I don't believe in reading PowerPoints legit, so you can all read it. And it's really important to remember, if you stumble, it's okay. We all stumble. We all do. Rongvalder stumbles, Gianetta stumbles, Duke Edward stumbles, Kellic stumbles. All these people, it's so easy to put them up on a pedestal, but they all make mistakes. And sometimes you may see them, sometimes you may not. but nobody's perfect. Don't put them on a pedestal. All you can do, and here's the final thing, is people come up to me sometimes because I'm a storyteller and I'm a performer and say, I want to be like you, Zoph. And I say, well, I'm already taken. How about you be the best you that you can be? So I'll never be Rongvalder, and I'll never be Edward, or never certainly be Kellic. I'm Zoph, also known as Caroline, and I'm going to be the best Caroline and Zoph that I can be. And all I can ask of every one of you is that you be the best you that you can be. Okay, that's it. Zoph's rules. Nicola says, be careful not to be a moral entrepreneur. Be careful making their business yours. Right, preach it. You may not understand that the bad person is only bad by your standards and not by the standards of the person you're trying to protect. Exactly. So before you jump in, learn this so much the hard way. Just get all the information, gather your information correctly before you jump in to save anybody. You can all unmute now and ask questions. Turn on your video if you want. I didn't swear. I think I swore once. I should get a prize. I should put $5 in savings. Any questions? Thoughts? I know somebody wrote that these rules are perfect for extroverts and not introverts. So if an introvert wants to take these rules and find a way to introvert them, please feel free.
Before we go, sorry for interrupting.
You're not interrupting, bud.
Yeah, what's up?
I do actually have one kind of question that revolves around something that you were mentioning towards the end of the discussion, where you were basically saying that the process of peerage essentially that it broke you and that it breaks a lot of people comparing to it. Is one of for somebody who is a relatively new person in the society, is it better to essentially go into the SCA and go into doing what you do without the expect to just like get the to get like the desire for peerage and the desire for titles and status and like and get like the aspiration of that, is like the best solution in that kind of case to just like put all that to the side or ignore it or just like go in without any expectation of that at all and just do what you do in the society and then what comes? Is that generally like the best way to avoid the
Heartbreak?
the heartbreak?
Yes and no. We all want to be rewarded for our hard work. So yeah, if you're one of those people who's not competitive, who doesn't want, who's cool just saying, look, I just fed a bunch of people and they're all happy and full, rock on, I don't need anything else. I'm not one of those people, unfortunately, and that's why I got broken. I like recognition. I mean, I was an actress. I won awards as an actress. You know, like we want. Right. Okay. So Nicola says the desire to be recognized is human and okay. The expectation, the demand, the sense of entitlement is human as well. But one is better than other and the other needs to fade away. Right. So what I had to learn, and that's why I wrote the rules too, so that nobody would have to be as broken as I was about it. It's okay to want to be a peer because you want to peer like. That's why I wrote the rules. Wanting to be those chivalric values that I put up, that oath, wanting to embody them is a good and admirable goal. Wanting to be a peer because you are like you strive to be like that and people saw that and decided that you should be a peer, that's a good goal. Wanting to be a peer so that you can use it like a club to hurt other people is not the good reason to be a peer. Wanting to be a peer so that you can show all them MFs up is not a good reason to be a peer. So it's like, it's okay to want to be a peer. Just be careful of why you want to be a peer. And if it comes from your feelings of insecurity, there are way better ways to help yourself and that feeling of insecurity than a peerage ever would, which is what I found out. Does that answer your question?
It definitely does. Thank you so very much
Sure.
for the insight on that.
Yeah. But yeah, at the same time, you should not want those things, but we're human beings, and of course we're going to want those things. We want the recognition. All right,
Absolutely.
everybody, are we good? Have a great evening. Ping me if you have any questions.